And for MAD, Materials, Armaments Development, J8, Commodore Dayan, up to today, because tomorrow is going to take over. From the Army, Major General Restituto Padilla. From the Navy and from the Air Force, Major General Sotelo is represented here by General Protasio. We also have the Chief. Start off with the Secretary of the Public Affairs, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs of the DND, Ms. Ilustre. The Presidential Assistant for Military Affairs, Major General Magno. Of Chronicle. And I have gone around this morning asking who will represent media today in the short remarks later on, and it was...
And the rest of us in the armed forces, I welcome you to this very important occasion, which we have dubbed the AFP Briefing and Dialogue with Media. As I have been told, the basic purpose of this meeting is for the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine media, as well as the foreign media representatives in the Philippines, to meet each other, to get to know each other, and to understand more of each other. This morning, there will be a presentation of what the armed forces is and what it is doing right now, especially in relation to the security problems of the Philippines. It is our hope that this morning's occasion will give all of us, both you distinguished practitioners of media in the Philippines, as well as our senior officers present here, a greater understanding of each other, a better perception of each other's jobs and responsibilities to the public, and a closer friendship among each other. We hope that this morning's activity, especially to those of you who have hardly the time to devote to occasions like this, of matters, particularly in regard to perceptions of what the armed forces is doing, will also understand their media. We have each other's responsibilities, as I said earlier, and I repeat, our clearer understanding of each other. These occasions, as I understand it, from time to time, there will be occasions in the future, personalities in the media as well as in the armed forces will be set up. So, without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, may I repeat, welcome to the AFP Briefing and Dialogue with Media. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, General Secretary. Now we would like to call on Mr. Chino Roses, as representative.
with about 12,280 firearms, a 5% decrease and a 1% increase. The communist terrorist or CP strength increased at an annual average rate of 33%. Continuous attrition in the CPP-NPA rank and file, slackening of recruitment activities because the propaganda issues the CPP used to exploit by the masses of the CPP-NPA terroristic and coercive activities. At present, communist insurgency has affected some 20% incidents per day during the first semester of the year, a daily average of 3 government security personnel, 3 period. These figures represent about a 10% decrease compared to the first semester of 1986. The decrease can be partly attributed to the temporary cessation of hostilities during the remaining period of the ceasefire and the government policy on reconciliation, which already resulted in the surrender of 16,775 city regulars and sympathizers. This year, the cities have already killed barangay captains, 2 mayors and 2 vice mayors. They have also raided 30 barangays. The insurgents recently launched urban terrorism in the NCR and other urban centers to create an atmosphere of lawlessness and violence, undermine the people's faith in the government's ability to maintain peace and order, and ultimately transform these population centers into hotbeds of unrest. The recent killings of police and military personnel are part of the underground movement. The ABB is an urban terrorist group named after a former union leader as Solid Fire. The CPP-NPA clamored for the disbandment of the CHDF and the withdrawal of government troops from the countryside. The program emphasizes the NDF's support for the struggle of the Moro people for self-determination in an apparent move to enhance United Front building with suspected government informers and uncooperative civilians since late 1985. The CPP-NPA claims that this was US-inspired, apparently to place the government in bad light and to subtly inject the issue in violent incidents and the increase in city surrenderers. The CPP-NPA generates much of its funds through the so-called progressive taxation scheme, which in effect is extortion. The main targets of its fundraising base are sustaining population. Third, organization of parallel government administrative machineries at all levels. And fourth, United Front efforts. The cadres bind these mobilized people into various front organizations, such as peasant unions, cooperatives, militias, political parties in the pursuit of its objectives, has modified its stand from secession to autonomy beyond constitutional limits and greater participation in the national and local governments. The total MNLF strength is placed at 19,800 with 10,600 firearms. The peace talks initiated by the government have been. The MNLF strongly opposes the constitutional provision on autonomy, for it wants to have hegemony over the whole Misupala area, the autonomous government in the south run by the MNLF. Significantly, representatives of the 3 MNLF factions issued a joint statement calling for the holding of a plebiscite to settle the autonomy issue under the supervision of the United Nations, the Organization of Islamic Conference, and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. This marked their first attempt to forge unity among themselves. The present government. The military has uncovered a plan by this group, dubbed as Operation Plan No Elections, which is intended to disrupt the political exercises scheduled this year. Lately, another plot dubbed as Oplan Inambayan has been discovered. This calls for the seizure of the Manila International Airport and the Villamor Air Base to pave the way for the return of ex-President Marcos. As a result of continuous military operations, 3 officers have been invited to shed light on this latest plot. Let us now look briefly into the crime problem. Criminality has also become a special problem in the post-revolution period. The average
When you said 20% of all the barangays are affected by the communist insurgency, I would like to know, sir, to what degree is ISIS going felt? Is it totally controlled, partially controlled? Is it NPA country by day? Is it NPA country by night or 3 daytime? How many officials are the officials captured?
The degrees of being affected are divided into two general categories. The most severe degree of being affected is what we call an NPA influenced barangay. In an NPA influenced barangay, there is already inside that barangay a political cell as well as a small militia. Or if that militia is not there all the time, it does visit that barangay fairly often. And we estimate that in that influenced barangay, about 50% or more of the population already conform to communist pressures and the communist party line. The other degree of influence is what we call infiltrated barangay. And here, we estimate that roughly 30% of the residents in that barangay are already following communist party lines and supporting the movement either willingly or unwillingly. And there are already occasional or periodic visits by armed militia. Now, in the 20% that was shown, roughly 8% of the barangays are so-called influenced, and 12% are infiltrated. What is important to remember here is that the NPA do not control the territory. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, together with the Integrated National Police, as well as other agencies of the government, can go into any barangay in the country at any time. And it is the degree of control over the population that is significant here. However, it is also important to note that government's presence, which should consist not only of the armed forces and the police forces, but also local government units, must have a continuing and visible presence in all of our barangays if eventually the CPP-NPA political infrastructure is to be finally neutralized or eliminated.